Unscripted, unshackled, uncouth.
What you're about to hear is for more mature audiences only.
It's Miguel and Holly Uncensored.
Hello and welcome to Miguel and Holly Uncensored. This is our off-air podcast that we do 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And we also have our Sunday sessions. And Holly, didn't you do yours this Sunday?
I did. It was actually a fascinating question that I got from a fan member about like the various emotions that you go through deciding if you want to just stop at having one child or attempt to have more, and like there's guilt, and is it okay to just have an only child? And so it was actually, I thought, a great topic, and I really enjoyed chatting about it.
I love that. So you can find that as our Sunday session. Now, we were out last Wednesday and Friday because we were in Austin, Texas for morning show boot camp. Mm-hmm. We're not going to be recapping that here. We will be recapping all of our stories on Wednesday. That's because we have a special guest that we were supposed to have on a couple of weeks ago, but then my dumb butt got my flight times mixed up.
Yeah, it was a flight thing.
We had to move her today. But if you've ever been fascinated, like I have been, and Kelvin and I have watched the show, I forgot what it was called now, on Hulu, about Gypsy Rose.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all heard the stories, and like, so that show was really interesting, and where a lot of us were introduced to the story, but a lot of people that are into true crime have been really invested in the story, and especially since Gypsy Rose has now been released from prison,
right,
and has a TV show. And I've always kind of wondered about, like, we obviously know the story.
Well, I was going to say, for those that don't, maybe
Right.
you just give a real brief overview for someone who, like, I know that it's been everywhere, but like,
In case.
I didn't watch the show.
Right.
I know about it, but someone might not.
So let me just give you, and Kelvin, help me fill in the blanks here, because it's been a couple of years since I watched the show on Hulu. But basically, there was this woman, this mom, who had a baby, and she would basically faked this child being sick for most of her life. And the child didn't know until later on when she was a teenager, I believe. And so all of a sudden she realized that she'd been going to all these doctors and all this stuff, and there was lots of abuse and things going on. Well, then the girl, Gypsy Rose, met this guy online and basically created this plan to kill her mom.
Right.
And so her mom was murdered by this guy that she convinced to do it. And that's sort of, I think, was there anything that I missed? I mean, that's like a really simplified.
The big highlights, right? Because, and the big, like, psychological issue is that they said it was like this Munchausen by proxy disorder, disease, whatever that is. It's like a psychological thing where you want to, keep that person sick and dependent. And so the big thing is that that's what was wrong with Gypsy Rose. And so she did go to jail, but now she is this sort of like celebrity kind of.
Infamous.
Yes. Yeah. I wouldn't even say sort of. I would say she
Very
is a
much,
celebrity.
yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing memes and videos before she got out of jail of people like posting like 4 days till Gypsy's out, 3 days till Gypsy's out.
People were celebrating. Half of the aisle was, pro her and, she needs her freedom. And the other side of it is, no, keep her locked up. She murdered or was part of the murder.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, well, that's where we are going to land today with the special guest, because there is a whole crowd of people that are saying, we don't know the full truth. Like, we saw that Hulu movie or a TV show. We've watched Gypsy Rose's Lifetime TV show.
Yeah.
She's out free now, but the homeboy who killed her mom is still sitting in jail.
Yes. Right.
So this is why we're welcoming Becca Scoops, who has a YouTube channel where they're producing viral documentary style expose uncovering key evidence and facts behind the true story behind Gypsy Rose. Becca, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. Really, really appreciate it.
You have such an interesting take on all of this.
Yeah. Do you want me to start or just kind of how I got into it? Okay.
About your YouTube channel, and then sort of like what made you get into wanting to unpack the truth behind Gypsy Rose,
and what is your background?
Okay, so I'm a former RN, psychiatric and ICU, and my husband is a veteran detective. He's also retired, and so when Gypsy Rose was getting off, on parole, when she was coming out of prison, we started our YouTube channel. And so that was the story. That was the big story because we were going to do a true crime channel. And I said, you know what? Let's do our first series on Gypsy Rose. He's like, great, let's do it. Let's deep dive it. Let's get into it. One thing that intrigued me was I was watching this forensic psychiatrist on YouTube, and this guy's Hidden True Crime. He has a huge channel also. And he was talking about the mom, Gypsy's mom, who supposedly had this Munchausen by proxy, right? That this is what caused her to, make Gypsy sick and have all these surgeries, and which, ultimately led to her murder, right? And he said, wait a minute, to him, she did not fit the criteria for Munchausen by proxy. And I was like floored by that. I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean she doesn't have Munchausen by proxy? If she doesn't have Munchausen by proxy, then why did Gypsy kill her mom? Right?
Yeah, because that's the whole. I mean, I literally, all of us were introduced to this term by Gypsy Rose, and now we're all like experts on Munchausen.
Right. And honestly, maybe just because with your background, maybe you could give a brief side tangent about what exactly it is.
Okay, so Munchausen by proxy typically is a disorder where there's Munchausen and then there's by proxy. By proxy means somebody's doing it to someone else. Okay. Right. And what they're doing is they're creating this illusion that this person is ill, and they're seeking out medical care. And why they do it, it's weird, right? Why they're doing it is they love the affirmations they're getting. They love being the center of attention. They love being said, oh my God, you're such a suffering mom, my God, your child. And, and so they get hooked on this dynamic of their child being ill. Some mothers actually end up killing their children. There's certain documented cases where they're injecting their child with fecal matter. They're injecting their child with high levels of salt, and the child dies. Usually that's what happens a lot of the time. But with Gypsy, she made it all the way when she was 23 when she actually murdered her mom. A lot of people thought she was a lot younger because of her stature and stuff. And so that's what Munchausen by proxy is. Now, there's a different disorder called malingering, where we've all malingered. It's like when you pretend like you're sick, you're like, I call in sick to work, but you're really not sick. That's malingering. So I wouldn't think you did. But yeah, so they can mimic each other. One is a severe psychiatric disorder. The other one, not so much, So when I started looking into this, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Gypsy actually had a real disorder. She actually was ill. She had this chromosomal deletion that came out. So let me just back up a little bit. All of her life, she was exhibiting these symptoms, right? That she claimed were not real symptoms. So like she had a few surgeries. She had some salivary glands removed. Her teeth had issues. I don't know. You've all seen Gypsy Rose. She has kind of a distinct look to her face. That's the chromosome deletion. She's only 4'11". She's got that high squeaky voice. All of that are part of the chromosome deletion that she has. Okay. So, but the mom didn't know the chromosome deletion, the actual disorder, wasn't discovered in 2008. And so she was born in 1991. So her whole life, she's having these symptoms, and her mom's like going from doctor to doctor to try to figure out what's wrong with her. Right. But Dee Dee, that's the mom, was also malingering, meaning she was kind of a con artist. So this is where it gets very convoluted and very, you got to really look at the whole case. So Dee Dee was a con artist. Even before Gypsy was born, there was some bad check writing and some things that she did, some grifting, stuff like that. When she found out Gypsy was ill, she kind of turned that she was She was a single mom and she needed funds. And so she would embellish. Oh, she would shave her head. Oh, she has cancer. No, she never had cancer. But she did have this disorder that was unknown for the majority of her life. And so Gypsy never disclosed that. It was in the medical records, and it was only discovered like a year ago.
And
we discovered it. The Gypsy knew about it. Knew about it, but she never took, like the people that made the Hulu series and stuff like that. I don't think they knew.
Right, because I want to just point out that like that's why this is sort of like a huge bombshell, because we were thinking that Dee Dee was making Gypsy Rose sick on purpose when she's actually dealing with something. And so now it kind of like cloudies the whole reasoning on why, like, it doesn't take away from all the bad things that Dee Dee did do to Gypsy Rose, and it makes that, that's still awful, but it does add another extra layer of context of, well, why did she kill her mom?
Right. So yeah, I in my videos, I always say, yes, Dee Dee wasn't the perfect mom. Obviously, you shouldn't raise your kid this way, right? Having her as your grifting partner, right?
Right.
That's, hey, that's abusive. I'm not going to say it's not, but why did we murder her?
Right.
Now, what have you started to understand and to uncover after sort of finding out this piece of information, and how does that change the way that you look at the entire Gypsy Rose situation?
Right. So that's where my husband comes in. So as the veteran detective, he started to look into cases. And, in criminology, there's patterns. Criminals usually follow patterns. And so it's not unheard of for women in their late teens, early 20s. There's many cases of women getting their partner to murder their parents. So that's not an unknown thing. And usually it's because they want to get away from their mother. And usually it's because they're a sociopath. They're a sociopath.
Mother or the daughter?
The daughter, Gypsy. Yeah. Okay. And I believe, allegedly, I can't diagnose her, obviously, but if you look at her pattern, if you look at, her life, and I've studied it for over a year, I have to say that I agree with my husband, who's a veteran detective, that what we're looking at here is a young woman who is probably allegedly a sociopath who got, this guy. And by the way, the man that she got to murder her mother is a level 2 autistic man. This isn't a guy dealing, you know what I mean? This guy has a disability. He was on permanent disability. Right. So, there's so much to this case that you watch the act, and because they didn't cover any of this, whether they didn't know it, I'm sure they didn't know it. But now that this is all coming out, finally, Gypsy had to acknowledge the microdeletion, her chromosomal disorder. But she says, oh, I'm unscathed. It didn't, affect me. But none of it makes sense then. So that, now that she's admitted to having it, then you've got to ask the question, well, then your mother wasn't medically abusing you. She was abusing you, in another way, but she wasn't medically abusing you, because Gypsy's written 2 books. And in her last book, she wrote that she believed it was that she had to kill her mother because her mother was going to kill her. And there's nothing that backs that up. There's nothing that backs that up. So, and then we just got a FOIA release of all of Gypsy's prison emails, which even backs it up more, where she's writing to various people and she's saying, I just had to get away from my mom. I just had to get out from under her control. Nothing like I feared for my life. I was going to die. No. You can't find that. You can't find her writing that to anyone.
So how do you think, Becca, that our obsession with true crime documentaries and podcasts and reenactments and stuff like that, how has that contributed to the cloudiness of this entire situation now?
I think that you're right. People are very, very much invested into true crime cases. And sometimes, even with this case, sometimes I get frustrated because now that it's kind of resurging again and it's becoming popular to deep dive, and everyone's a researcher, and everyone that people start these conspiracies also around it. And then that kind of gets frustrating for me because I'm not doing this for clickbait or to, I wanted to find out the truth. But then because the true crime community can be, sketchy on one side of it, where people are all into conspiracies, then there's all these conspiracies now around, oh, well, Gypsy did this and Gypsy, and it gets crazy because it was investigated. We know who did the crime. We know she got her boyfriend to do it. But then there's others now that are coming out with, salacious accusations that, so yeah.
What?
So
I'm sorry, go ahead, Holly.
I was going to say, so when it comes to all this, she is at this level of celebrity that we touched on at the beginning.
Yeah.
Is this potentially dangerous?
Well, that's the whole thing. So after I discovered all of this, and I was convinced, my husband and I, we were convinced that, this is what we are telling you is the truth of the matter. I felt that she's dangerous to be on social media. She actually had a young woman that was looking up to her, that contacted her. This is the danger in that, younger people can be looking at her and see, oh, look, she killed her mom and she got away with it. Basically, she went to prison for a couple of years and now she's out. And look, she's got book deals. She's got a TV series. That's dangerous, right? I mean, so our goal was to tell her to leave social media, that, get off social media, stop it, and she's kind of actually done that now. I don't know for how long. She does this a lot. She comes and goes. She's got 9.3 million followers on TikTok.
Wow.
Jesus.
I didn't know that.
Does she talk about like what happened at all, or is she more on her social media, or is she more focused on, like, here's what I'm doing since getting out of prison? Because I remember, I think we even covered the stories in our trending segments back then, that like she got divorced from the guy that she was with in prison and all this stuff. And it was, she literally has become a celebrity in the way that pop culture covers her. Internet
celebrities and things like that. And reality show celebrities type of thing.
Yeah, she has. Well, she's used her social media. She's I believe she's also a malignant narcissist. So she loves to get on there and it's like, look at me, look at this, she's doing her hair. She's been trying out different ways to, I guess, make a living on social media. So she's got the followers. So like at one point she was exercising with dumbbells. At another
okay, well, that's one way to do it.
Fitness influencer.
Yes.
She's doing the influencer thing, exactly. So then she was trying to get ready with me. She was trying to get sponsorships, I think, but she's a convicted murderer. It's like no. You know what I mean? No, we're not. I don't want to get ready with you. No, I don't. So
wait. So how do we explain? Okay, so with this new layer of information, not the new layer of information, the things that have been investigated about her health, and how do you explain like the mother making her get a feeding tube and removing the salivary glands? Like,
right. Great questions. Yeah,
is that enough for her to still be angry? I don't condone murder.
Oh,
obviously.
No, exactly.
But the fact of the matter is, these things were happening to her.
Right.
Could she
So
have thought about it a different way? Absolutely.
So she had the microdeletion. She had it. So at birth, she was born with what's called microcephaly, which is when your skull is too small. And she also had breathing issues. Okay. This was all from the chromosomal deletion. Okay. They didn't know. The doctors didn't know. They just said, oh, here's this little kid. She's born with microcephaly. There's something, they knew that there was something going on genetically with her. The feeding tube, there was actual feeding studies that were done in the hospital. So it wasn't like the mom came in and said, you know what, my daughter doesn't eat. Can you put a feeding tube in? No. They actually did overnight studies, to make sure she needed it. And I think that was based on her problem with the chromosome problem, right? That she was having what's called failure to thrive, or eating eating problems that she's now grown out of. I guess my point is that she's had like she's lied and said, like, on a Dr. Phil interview, I've had so many surgeries. I've had over 30 surgeries. Well, what she forgot she did was she drew a diagram of her body and her surgeries in her book, where she's got the salivary glands, she's got the feeding tube, she had a muscle biopsy, and then a laparoscopic procedure for her indigestion problem. That's it.
Oh.
So that's the sum total of the surgeries. Okay. So she also had dental issues, the chromosomal deletion. You have problems with the mouth and digestion and stuff like that. She had ear tubes, but basically there were not over 30 surgeries. And ever since, I've like challenged her, well, then show me the records. We have what I believe is most of the medical records, but now she's claiming you don't have all of the medical records. And I'm saying, okay, great. I just want the truth. I don't want to spread any lies. Then show, if you had over 30 surgeries, if your mom was making you ill, prove it to me. Because that was what was shocking to me, is after I started looking into it, I'm like, well, where are all these surgeries at? Where are all these, so yeah, she did have a feeding tube. But if you look at the documentation and the medical records, they did. They didn't just put it in. It was like they studied her. She was like spitting up food at one point. And then the doctor was like, okay, let's go ahead and do this. So yeah, there was a reason for it. There was a reason for it.
Is it possible? So putting those pieces together. So this would be the next jump in my mind is it a possible theory then? If what the story we were told is not quite accurate, the mom, as you said, was a grifter, con artist. Realized that, she did have a daughter with maybe something going on, but then of course utilize that to like really help herself out, money, all this stuff. And of course, when you're the kid in this situation, you grow up with that. That's the air you breathe. You're growing up in a grifting household. And so
and you're getting free stuff.
Well,
as a child,
you are.
Even though, and again, the abusive portions, nobody should go through that. However, and then she's mad at her mom and obviously very upset, but then also knows how to grift. So did she just take in a weird, like, pupil has become the teacher that kills a teacher?
Pretty much we're seeing
all
that.
those lessons and then use it against her mom.
Yeah, sadly, she was surrounded by a lot of people that once they figured out that she could be a cash cow, right? That this story had legs, and everybody around her, and this is including the woman that helped her, this woman named Melissa Moore, who was a correspondent on the Dr. Oz talk show. Actually, her father is the happy face killer. So this woman named Melissa Moore, it was just on Paramount. There was just a Paramount series. So Melissa Moore is the daughter of the happy face killer. She turned that notoriety into getting a gig with Dr. Oz, the Dr. Oz show, as his true crime correspondent. That's where she met Gypsy Rose Blanchard's stepmother, Christy Blanchard, when Gypsy was still in prison. And Melissa saw, hey, this is going to be a big story, right? Melissa was astute enough to know, oh, you know what? Gypsy's got it going on. People want to know about Gypsy. And so she started cultivating a relationship with Gypsy Rose. That's how Gypsy Rose got her Lifetime series. That's how Melissa Moore was the conduit to go to Lifetime and say, hey, you guys are going to want a piece of this, And so then she got her the series and stuff like that. I guess my point is that Melissa, I also have a video about Melissa, and she was spreading untruths. She was like spreading outlandish untruths about Gypsy Rose. And I'm just like, oh my God, what is going on with these people? I don't know if Melissa is just repeating what Gypsy told her, or if Melissa is kind of like embellishing because she knows, to make Gypsy out to be the ultimate victim is the route to get her to be an influencer and more money. So yeah, Gypsy is definitely, the behaviors that I've seen since she's gotten out, she is following in her mother's footsteps. You're right.
This is
wow.
Becca, you got my mind being blown over here. I'm like, what? And then you bring in the happy face killer.
I know, it's all over the place, right? It's just like, you can't make this stuff up, right? You can't make it up.
You can't.
No.
By the way, that is a really good TV show. Happy Face Killer on Paramount Plus. I just watched it earlier this summer. So what is your goal? What do you want after all of this? What are you hoping will come forth after, banging the drum that, hey, lies are happening?
I think that, when you want to, I think that we want the mainstream media to maybe correct the record a little bit. Obviously she's not going to go back to prison, also I think that, for her mother's legacy, she wasn't, she's got the grifting and the but she wasn't making her ill, And so is it fair that her mother is murdered and then she's also made out to be this monster? Because she wasn't really a monster, maybe not the best mom and, questionable parenting stuff, right? But did she need to be murdered? And why is she constantly being vilified? That's another thing Gypsy uses her social media for, is to vilify her mother over and over again. She'll on Mother's Day, she'll put something up and then she'll say something bad about her mom. And you're like, girl, just stop. And I think that's what angers people and what we call the anti-Gypsy community, is because we want the record corrected. We want the mainstream media to pick up on this story and to correct the record for her mother's legacy.
Wow.
That is so interesting. Wow. Yeah.
Well, I guess, and my other question would be to you, Becca, is like, obviously, yes, it goes without saying, murder is horrible, and that shouldn't happen.
Don't murder people.
Right. But she served her time. Gypsy Rose served her time.
Yep.
And you have to make a living. And as a person who knows people that have been to prison, who served their time, and they're now trying to be a contributing member of society, at some point they do have to make a living, and it's hard. I have a family member that did not murder anyone, but he was involved in a situation where there was murder involved. He was just there involved, or he was there for it. And so he's had a really hard time trying to rebuild his life and find a job. And so my question to like the anti-Gypsy Rose community is, what are you wanting, or how are you wanting her to conduct herself when she's trying to make a living?
You know what? If she came out and told the truth, I think that people would be more forgiving. If she just said, you know what? Yeah, my mom wasn't, you guys are right, or not right, but, to just acknowledge it. I think that instead of to keep perpetrating this lie about her mom, I think that people would be forgiving. I wouldn't be so hell-bent on getting her off social media. I just think the way it stands now, it's dangerous. I totally agree with you. My heart goes out to people that are struggling after they come out of prison. It's a bad place to be. They want to turn around their life, and yet they've got this, mark on them that people are not wanting to hire them. It's terrible. It's bad. I agree with that. I think that what the anti-Gypsy community gets upset about is that she is constantly not just vilifying her mother, but also her co-defendant, who's in prison now for the rest of his life, right? So he's not getting out. And that she manipulated him. She also vilifies him. Now, he murdered her. Yeah, that's not a good guy, right? But there's a lot of mitigating factors that comes with him. His name's Nick Godejohn, that, he had the level 2 autism, and the things that she was feeding him about why, her mother had to die. And, so this isn't a guy. She was manipulating him to the point where an expert in autism said that she was a master manipulator of this guy. And so I think that's what angers people, is like, hey, just tell the truth, don't vilify Nick, don't vilify your mom, and take ownership. The thing that got me about Gypsy Rose, and what set me off and made me turn to my husband and go, you know what, we're going to look into this girl. Her first interview was on the Vile Files, and she's sitting there and she says, you know what, I don't identify as a murderer.
Oh.
And I was like, what are you well, but you are one. You're a convict, in my mind I'm like, but you're a convicted one. And she goes, but I didn't do the act. I couldn't do that. So I'm not really a murderer. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're getting
That
into
was red
semantics, but-
flags, Yeah, red
Right.
flags.
Wow.
So no accountability. I think we want, when people do a crime, we want them to take accountability, take responsibility. And she won't do it. She won't do it.
Wow. Well, you have definitely opened up our eyes a lot, Becca. This is,
Yes.
I kind of want to go back and watch the act again just to sort
Right.
of like refresh my mind on all
Come
the
at it
things.
from a new perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so do you think, or would you hold Hulu and the producers accountable at all? And how, because most of us know the story from that show, and you left feeling sympathetic towards Gypsy Rose, which is why so many of us, we're like celebrating her release.
Right.
So would you put any accountability or blame on them?
Maybe a little bit, because the medical records were there, but not so much. I think that they did the best they could with what they had, so no, I don't really blame them.
Well, Becca Scoops, how can people dive deep if they're like, I am fascinated? How can people find you on social media and watch the videos that you and your husband have created?
Absolutely. We're on YouTube. Just go to Becca Scoops, look up Becca Scoops on YouTube, and you'll find all our videos. And we'd love to have, new people join, our channel and find out about Gypsy Rose.
I love that. Oh, and last question for you real quick. Because you talked about true crime with teens and how they're glorifying her, what message would you give to parents of teenagers that all of a sudden they hear that their kids are like listening to true crime documentaries and watching all the TV shows and documentaries on Netflix and whatnot? What would you tell parents?
Yeah, just look at what your kids are looking at. Just be a little bit more aware that there's some things out there that you need to monitor, and to make sure that they're not, just be aware.
For sure.
Becca, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
We really
you.
appreciate
You guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
All right.
Yeah.
And we will be back on Wednesday with our morning show boot camp wind or rundown
Recap
of everything that happened. And we will see you all on Wednesday.